Well, reckoning this, reckoning that, I reckon we got some real issues that we don't have answers for yet.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day. Our post-game live/Thursday episode sponsor is FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. If your $5 bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app after signing up. Download the app today in order to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Happy very late Wednesday evening here / our Thursday episode. Post-game live, NC State basketball has now lost their third game in their last 4 attempts. A 10-point loss on the road in Auburn, especially a loss in the ACC-SEC Challenge. So apologies to the rest of the ACC. We could not hold up our end of the bargain. But Kenton, I mean, you chalk up another disappointing loss here for Will Wade and the NC State Wolfpack. Another game where the opposing team is shooting the lights out from the perimeter. We've talked about this repetitively already. I know that Will Wade and their staff is relying on analytics to assess how they're playing their three-point defense. I'm here to tell you again, it is not working. You're repetitively allowing what becomes like a shoot-around for the other team. And again, coming into this game, I told you, Auburn was like a 32.5-point three-point shooting team. They shot over 50% tonight. Kevin Overton, who finished with 29 points for Auburn, 6 of 9 from downtown, that's a career high. So the defense that we're putting out on the floor on a nightly basis is setting teams up to achieve career highs. I think we had one against Seton Hall, had another one against Texas, and here we go, 3 of their last 4 now against Auburn. It's brutal. It's getting brutal to watch, and the disappointment is very real. We were told about a reckoning, still waiting to see it, unfortunately. And so there's really no way you can look at this other than disappointing. This is not quite what we expected this team to look like out of the gates, and of course, it will take time. Every team takes time because no one, and I do mean no one, is playing their best basketball in November and into December. Now, that being said, our team is not as good as I anticipated or hoped that they would be up until this point. The defensive breakdowns are all over the place, and it's costing us games. Shot selection for a large part of this game really started to irk me. We'll get into that later, but Kenton, a 10-point loss on the road to Auburn. What did you see tonight?
I saw, you know my rule, Grace. 1 time is the exception, 2 times is a pattern, 3 times is who you are. Well, exactly. You talk about a shooting exhibition put on by your opponents. This is now back-to-back games of teams shooting 50% or more from 3 against you.
Yeah.
Texas shot exactly 50%. Auburn tonight shot 55% from deep. Don't get me wrong. I'm not out on this team. But like Grayson warned you about the other day, with a third loss in 4 games potentially, your hand gets a little bit closer to the panic button. But I wouldn't say the panic button. I wouldn't say the panic button is the right button here. The button I would use instead, I would say more of a year 1 mulligan button, because I'm not willing to give up on Will Wade and the Red Reckoning based on what happens in year 1. Because while we were excited about this team, the issues that we warned about, that we said, like, this could be bad, are turning out to be exponentially worse than what we thought. Yeah. We came in thinking, hey, there's going to be some problems defensively with this team, and they'll figure it out. Maybe they won't be terrible. Maybe they'll get a couple guys to kind of cover that up. It's worse than we thought. It's worse than we thought, So I sit here before you all today, and I would say, don't give up on this team, but understand who this team is. Understand Musa Sanye is not the starter. He's our best rim protector. Understand Arsenal is not a starter. Terrence Arsenal is not a starter. He's our best perimeter defender. you could make an argument for Quadri Copeland, but he reaches a little bit too much for my liking and gets – and some of it is not him. Some of it is reputation files. But the reality is, I mean, that's just what it is right now. Like the refs are playing him with a very tight whistle, which kind of limits his defensive efficacy. So I sit here and I say this team's got some soul searching to do. They've got to figure some things out. They've got to figure some things out. And I will say, on a night like tonight, it's not just the habits that we saw, the things that we talked about in other games that came up. There's also problems that are new that are arising because our bench gave us precious little tonight. Yeah. And one of the things that you and I talked about all offseason was depth. Depth. We got guys. We can play 9. We can play 9. Grayson, just out of curiosity, how many points do you think our entire bench scored tonight?
I'm looking at it. It's only 5.
Not only is it 5, it's 5 points on 2 of 15 shooting.
Ugh. Yeah.
What do you want to do? What do you do with that? Right? That's what our bench gives us. And Auburn, on the other hand, their bench gives them 11 on 4 of 6. I feel like that's the answer. So, it's an unfortunate night. We're starting to see things where it's like, all right, this is who you are. Unless you decide to fix it right away, this is who you'll be for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and something that's become pretty prevalent, I think, in this team, because you saw it against Seton Hall, you saw it against Texas, and now you've seen it, again, third time in 4 games against Auburn tonight. This team, will play somewhat decently in the beginning. Maybe we'll have a lead. We're up by 4 or 5 points. And then I swear it's like you blink and you're down 9, you're down 10, you're down 11. It just – basketball is a game of runs. That is and forever will be true. But for our team so far, it's like it's a game of tsunamis. We'll hit a couple threes and we'll crawl back into it, but then we'll give up a 10-0 run. It's like, well, good Lord, all the work we just did just completely went out the window. And that is a very concerning now pattern for this team because we've seen it on multiple occasions. Something I saw tonight, not just with my own 2 eyes, but I saw a lot of commentary on social media about it, and I do believe this to be true. I think we've come to the conclusion here, a very clear-cut conclusion. Quadri Copeland is the glue of this team because it feels like some of those tsunami runs against us, like I just mentioned, every time those are happening, it's because he's off of the court. And, we talked about his leadership capabilities and how he is a very integral part to this team. I think we're finding out very quickly how important he actually is because the communication for our team when he's off the floor, it goes downhill. The cohesiveness and nailing your assignment, both offensively and defensively, for whatever reason, when he's off the court, it's going downhill. And conversely, I thought Matt Abel tonight, he had a bit of a rough game. He looked a lot like a freshman typically does in their first year getting thrust into the spotlight. Now, Matt Abel is 2 for 11, and I mentioned his shot selection, I think it was in that Texas game last week. He just feels like he's getting really sped up. He looks uncomfortable, but he's not stopping and to think maybe this is not the shot to take right now. He's just hoisting up anyway. There was that moment, I think it was there in the first half, where we got a good steal. I can't remember if Matt Abel stole it himself. He had quite a few tonight, but we had a 4-on-1. And then Matt Abel pulls up from 3 and clanks it. It's like, I know you're a freshman. I know you're exciting, but in that moment, those are the plays you have to hit on. You have got to convert to get points on that play. With a 4-on-1 break, you better attack the rim with all you got. If you get fouled, great. If you get fouled and make it, even better. You can't pull up from 3 there. I mean, if you hit it, maybe I won't complain, but you can't pull up for 3 right there and clank that. That's lost momentum. And it feels like a lot of times in these last couple of games, the shot selection from Matt Abel and a couple others, it's just killing possessions at very crucial parts of that half. So that's something that really stuck out for me tonight. Just very poor shot selection, not enough ball movement, just not a real good feel for the situation and the game itself. And so, I've seen a lot of commentary on Darian Williams. He's had a rough couple games for us tonight, or especially tonight, but last couple games in particular. He's a guy that is so good, and I know there's a lot of whatever going about right now. He's going to figure it out. He will come along as his team continues to come along. Yeah, I'm running out of words to say here. You can hear me. It's going to be a struggle for the foreseeable future now, because you still got to play Kansas. You still got to play Ole Miss. We don't look like a team that is going to be competitive enough to take either one of those games. Point blank. That's just the reality of the situation right now. And as disappointing as that is, it appears that it's going to take more time to get this thing actually off the ground than all of us originally anticipated.
My question is this. Who's going to step up? If it's not Darian Williams, who's going to step up? I want to give you a very interesting stat. Through the first 4 games of the season, so right now, what's our record, Grayson?
We are, 5-4?
5-3. We're 5-3, right?
Sorry,
we're 5-3, which means we played exactly 8 games, right? I want to split these right down the middle, this is quite literally a fact. From Central through VCU, Darian Williams was averaging 23.25 a game. Would you venture to guess what he's averaging since then?
I'd say closer to like 12.
12.25.
Right on the nose.
What do you do with that? So then you don't have your star starring. You don't have your depthing. What are we doing? What's the answer? What's the answer at that point? And call me whatever you want here for expecting more out of Darian Williams, but at the end of the day, brother, you're a multi-million-dollar man. You're a multi-million-dollar man. And we're sitting here and saying, well, in these big games, 12 is about what we're going to get. I beg your damn pardon. I beg your pardon. Oh, no. I'm sorry. You talk about Matt Abel looking sped up and all that. Well, guess what? He's your freshman. My freshman is supposed to have games like that. I expect that. That's the expectancy of what I have of a freshman. The same way that he's had games where it's like, oh, that kid can't do anything wrong. I expect him to have games like this. I do not expect my multi-million-dollar man to come forth to me with 12.25 a game. Absolutely not. There's not a world where you can tell me that, and I'm going to look at you and say, yeah, that's enough. Yeah, we've got enough. Yeah, that makes sense. And to anybody who would say, oh, well, it's only 1.5 or whatever, I don't know the exact details. I know he is your big money guy. I know that much.
Yeah.
I know that he's well taken care of in NIL. And so at the end of the day, more than anybody else, more than on the perimeter defense, because like we've talked about, we lost this game by 10 points. Well, Grayson, what's the difference between 12.25 and 23.25?
It's right at 11?
11. So if your star does his star thing, does what he started off the season doing, you win this game. But instead, I'm supposed to look at the freshman and say, oh, you look better. That's just not it for me. That's just not it for me. And anybody who knows me knows I don't like, coming at kids and saying, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. But at the end of the day, we're in a different ball game than we were when this podcast first started. When guys were doing this when this podcast first started, they were doing it for the Block S. Now these guys are getting paid big boy money. These guys are getting paid more money than some of the people who are here right now at midnight will ever make in their life in a year. And you want me to sit here and excuse a passiveness, a lack of a motor? I expect for Paul McNeil, he's a young guy. If Paul McNeil's shot not falling, I expect him to struggle to find ways to impact the game. Not my star, because it looked like Darian Williams was struggling to find a way to impact the game. So for me personally, if I'm going to say, where do we call this out? It starts at the head and goes down. Will Wade, you've got to motivate your guys. You said Red Reckoning. You said top 4 in the ACC and a lock for the attorney. Well, damn it, we need to see it. And then from you, we need to go to the top guy on the team. Hey, Darian, that's you, brother. That's you. That's your role. And from there, obviously, when you're going through a slump like this where there's 3 out of 4 loss, there's plenty of blame to go around. But the reality is we have to get more from our star. The stars have to star more so than I would count on depthing. I'm going to expect, if I'm a deep team and my depth is young, I'm going to expect them to go out sometime like that. But my stars got to star.
Yeah, took the words right out of my mouth. The stars have to be the stars for NC State. It could have been tonight, but most certainly going forward. To maximize potential of this team, your best players have to perform as such. More on what went wrong tonight. This will come after a quick word from our sponsors. Stick with us. Our first post-game sponsor and also our Thursday show sponsor is Aura Frames. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. If you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap, it's a way to share all of your memories. Because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it, so all they have to do is plug it in and all the memories are already there. No apps to figure out, no setup headaches, just instantaneous smiles. You can add personalized messages right inside of the frame so the gift will feel thoughtful the moment that it's open. The packaging will become gift ready with no price tag, no wrapping needed. It's always a huge win. It is the holiday gift that actually gets used and not forgotten in a drawer. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off of Aura's best-selling Carver Mat frames, named #1 by Wirecutter. You can do all this by using the promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's Aura Frames, AURA frames.com, using promo code COLLEGE, COLLEGE, college. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and the frames will usually sell out extremely quickly. So order yours now and get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. All right, middle portion of our post-game live / Thursday episode. NC State falters and loses to the Auburn Tigers by a score, of 83-73 on the road. Disappointing to drop our portion of the ACC-SEC challenge. Last I saw it was tied. I believe, I hope we weren't the game that tilted the scales there. But another disappointing showing tonight for the NC State Wolfpack. I want to talk more about these defensive breakdowns. And obviously we've talked ad nauseum already about the 3-point defense we've been putting out to show. And we know the comments that Will Wade made after the VCU win, basically saying, look, we're going to be a team that gives up a lot of attempts. We're going to give up a lot of threes, but it's the type of three that we're giving up that we're scheming for. Since then, I have yet to see a take that has aged worse than that in recent memory. We're getting blasted by Seton Hall. We're getting blasted by Texas. We're getting blasted by Auburn. Somebody's coming out hitting a new career high every night. The 3-point defense on the perimeter has been poor. And whether that's a lack of effort or lack of scheme or lack of execution, the rotation for us defensively, it's not working. There's been a lot of switching, and some of that switching has been detrimental. We're double teaming a lot of times, but at the wrong time, or double teaming the wrong guy, and it leaves open a Kevin Overton who knocks down 6 of 9 threes tonight. So the perimeter defense remains a massive, massive problem. Now, Auburn is also an extremely physical team, especially on the interior. They're going to try and push you around. They're going to try and bully you down low. Well, they did that because we got blasted on the rebounding count as well. I believe it was 35-22. Not going to cut it. It's not going to cut it against SEC teams. It's not going to cut it against ACC teams. The interior play for NC State, extending then out to the perimeter defense. At this point, Kenton, like you said, it becomes a pattern after a couple of these games.
Yeah, and you can tell that the reality is the analytics are saying protect the rim at all costs. So what do you do then, right? If you're protecting the rim at all costs, what are you going to give up? Some open looks from beyond the arc. The problem is, who are we giving those open looks to? Who are we giving those open looks to? That becomes the question there. And so we're seeing guys, like you said, multiple career highs, guys who we know are prolific scorers end up being the guy that is like, oh, well, we can't guard everybody, and we got to pre-rotate off somebody. I'm okay with a guy that's a career 25 to 30% shooter being the guy that's left open out there. who under God's green earth are we leaving open? Because these guys are dropping. Hey, here's a 30-piece nugget for you. Matter of fact, we're gonna be generous with the sauces, and McDonald's they act like that sauce coming out of their check, but that's what we are here. I'm going to say this: I understand the idea that a 2 at the rim against our current inside defenders, it's troublesome, but at some point in time, we've got to pick a lane and stick to it. That's my biggest thing. You have to be great at something. If you're going to be a good team, you either have to be good at everything or great at something. And right now, I would ask, what are we great at? We're not great at rim protection. We're not great at perimeter defense. We're not great at playmaking, because as much as I would love to say, oh, our guards are just tearing it up playmaking, Tahad Pettiford had more blocks than our entire team. A guard had more blocks than our entire team. So what does that tell you? That we had our guards in some very interesting positions and they were still putting the ball up anyway. So I see all this, and I'm going to just leave it at a space where if I'm Will Wade, I'm saying, you know what, damn it, we're going to be great at something. Whatever it is that we do, I'm going to find one thing that we do, and I'm going to say we'll do this better than anybody. We'll do this at a level that nobody can compete with us at. But right now, we don't have that identity offensively or defensively. We don't have that identity in terms of, oh, yeah, Will Wade's such a great X and O's guy. He's going to scheme up Darian Williams, a quick, easy 6 to 8 points so he can get himself hot. So now when he catches heat, we know what's coming for the rest of the game. We're not doing that. We're not doing this thing defensively in a way that's like, hey, we show up and we're physical and we play bulldog defense and we got a whole squad. Everybody plays like Quadir Copeland. That's what we're doing right now. We don't have that. I thought that we'd be a really, really good three-point shooting team. That hasn't necessarily materialized over this recent stretch. So it gets to a point where you have to draw a line in the sand and say, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do something. And when we do that one thing great, we will live with the negative results of that. But right now, this team seems identityless. And Grayson, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you think about NC State basketball right now, what's their identity?
It's supposed to be toughness, and that's something we talked about early in the season. There was that scuffle against, was it UNCG, where Holloman got ejected. There was some barking back and forth. This team, the last couple of games, there's been pockets of toughness, but not prolonged like a half of toughness. Now, On that note, I will say I thought we looked better for what it's worth, which is at this point not a whole lot. I thought we looked better in that department tonight against Auburn than we did against Texas or against Seton Hall. So maybe some incremental changes there, but it's still not enough. You're getting pushed around the interior. You're not switching. You're not defending out to the perimeter quick enough. I don't know if it's lack of hustle, if it's lack of want to, lack of effort. It's something in addition to what I deem to be some poor analytics there. It's just you're not getting it done, man. It's just you're not getting it. Like, we talked about this already. Like, 2 times it's like, okay, maybe it's coincidence. 3 times, no. Like, this is now your identity. You talked about, what is this team's identity? This is now their identity. They're becoming so flawed in so many different aspects. They get hit with those tsunami runs. It's like, oh, man, we're doing this again, huh? A game where you schedule these types of games. Look, I'll pivot here. You schedule a game like this Auburn game, even though it's an ACC, SEC game, but you schedule your tough non-conference games so you can win them and they will pad your resume down the road. You can't afford to blow all of these opportunities now. I mean, you lost to Seton Hall, you lost to Texas, you lost to Auburn. If you continue this path and you lose to Kansas and you lose to Ole Miss, you've squandered so many chances. And don't get me wrong, the ACC in conference, it will be better than it has been the last couple of years. There will be several Q1, Q2 chances there, but these early non-cons, they're going to matter later on down the road. And, scuffling and trying to find your feet now, there's something to be said for that. But to see how poorly we're playing defensively in particular, you're burning clock here. And it's really unfortunate to see it go down like this because, the calling card of this team should be toughness. It should be very analytical in a good way. You put that to good use, but we're kind of scrambling around with our head cut off, trying to figure out what we need to or not care about so much. And here we are, our third loss in the last 4 games. It's brutal. This is another chance that came up short on.
I'm going to say this, and I mean this very genuinely. When we walk away from this stretch, this brutal stretch, this team can do one of 2 things. They can bounce back. They can correct these mistakes that seem to be plaguing them and say, you know what? Yeah, we took 3 bad non-conference losses. It's all right. We'll get up off the mat. We'll get better. Or this team can fold up. This team can fold up, be front runners, and only be good when you're playing inferior opponents and all that. But at the end of the day, I'm going to say I'm not out on this team. I'm just out on this current idea of we're going to do what the analytics tell us, despite the real feel of the game going against the analytics. And you know what? Here's the thing. Will Wade is a Division I basketball coach that has done things in his career that have been fantastic that I could not imagine accomplishing personally. So I will sit here and admit, maybe this is just a stretch where the analytics, that 1% opportunity where, hey, you live with if this happens and that's happening, and then going forward in the season, everything will correct itself and be great. But it doesn't feel like that right now. It doesn't feel like that right now because the things that we're seeing, again, how many teams at the top of the ACC don't have multiple guards that can knock it down? How many teams in the ACC do you look at and think of and say, even if their 1 or 2 shooters get hot, they can't do it? We just saw Syracuse, who many people said, they're one of the worst teams in the ACC, 73 overall in the KenPom. We just saw them play Tennessee and have a couple shooters get hot. And all of a sudden they win that ball game. So I say all this to say the reality is this team, again, right now, it feels like they're going through the forest. It feels like they're 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness trying to find themselves and figure themselves out. This is early season. I'm not hitting the panic button. I'm not giving up on this team. But I am saying I'm seeing patterns. I'm starting to understand who you are. And I treat all NC State teams a lot like I treat my family. And I tell them all the time, I love y'all so much, I'm never going to get mad at you for being who you are. I'll get mad at you for acting out of character, but I'm not going to get mad at you for being who you are. And at this point in time, we realize these things are not defects in the system. We realize these open threes, not defects. That's a feature in the system. But some of these things, some of these defects, 12.5 or 12.25 a game from a guy that's supposed to be Mr. Everything. And then this is the other part of it. The biggest part that worries me about the defensive execution or lack thereof and how that ties back to some of our players offensively. When you watch Darian Williams and what happens when his shot isn't falling, he's supposed to be Mr. Everything. If we take away all of his shooting, everything along those lines, these are the stats we got, okay? 2 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 turnovers, 2 personal fouls. Does that sound like a stat sheet stuffer to you?
Not in a good way.
Does that sound like a guy that is doing this in a way that, again, your leaders set the tone? Will Wade can yell, can scream, can bench guys, all that he wants to. But at the end of the day, Will Wade ain't got no eligibility left. He ain't going to get back on that court. So the guys that are out there have to take it upon themselves to execute what's being asked of them at the highest level possible. And right now, I'm just not seeing that.
No, and, last thing that I wanted to harp on just briefly, turnovers tonight. Auburn was very loose with the ball. You generated a lot of deflections, a lot of steals. Turnovers were 20-9. We had the advantage there, and you still lose by 10 points. In a lot of ways, that's almost hard to do, not to mention that Auburn did not hit a field goal in the last 3.5 minutes of this game. Squandered opportunity after squandered opportunity. I mean, you can only go so long before that unfortunately does become your identity. So, again, we're not out on this team. The season is not lost, but it's a very disappointing start. That is undoubtedly true. No one can look at this team and be pleased so far with what we've seen so far. There's some signs of life. Again, for what it's worth, very little. I thought tonight was better than the Texas and Seton Hall losses were, but it's still not good enough. You have to find a way to finish these games because they will count in a massive way for your resume down at the end of the season. So that will do it for our basketball recap for tonight. 10-point loss on the road at Auburn. Disappointing. They have a couple, well, I guess potential get-right games, but I don't know if I'd call them that. UNC Asheville's a decent ball club. Liberty as well, a decent ball club. Those two before you face Kansas coming up in about a week and a half, or actually 2 weeks exactly. You gotta find answers here quick, fast, and in a hurry, or else maybe there won't be a reckoning in year one. Coming up next, just very briefly, want to speak on National Signing Day for NC State football. There seems to be a specific plan in place for how we're recruiting this next upcoming season. We'll talk about this after a quick word from our sponsors. Our second post-game sponsor / Thursday sponsor is FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. There's usually one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place live bets as the action unfolds. We lost Kenton. Every drive, every momentum swing, and every highlight moment, live betting is at its best when the game begins to shift. A wide receiver gets hot, the defense tightens up, or the momentum, flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action for the rest of the season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, but so can you. All right, we got Kenton back. Last couple minutes of our post-game live / Thursday show. Wednesday was National Signing Day in college football. NC State seemed to have what looked like a very successful day. They hit on the majority of their signees. They even had a couple flips. One in particular, we flipped from the Dirty Foot Club. Gotta love those. Lawrence Brown, hello, welcome to Raleigh. You belong here, not in Dirty Foot land. Have to take advantage of each and every time you get one of those. I know Dave Dorn was pleased. But Kenton, I want to speak about the recruiting strategy here. Now, we've talked a little bit before the season about the way that this 2026 class is shaping up. It's very 3-star heavy. There's not quite the star power that you've seen in years past. So I want to bring this to you. Do you think this kind of notifies a shift that they're going to go portal heavy this offseason instead of relying on high school recruits?
I think that it's going to be a balance as always. I mean, NC State will always be a school that relies very heavily on development. The only thing that I would say out of that is the development has to be met with retention, right? So you look at some of these players that you developed. I mean, one of the leaders in the nation in interceptions by safety, Bishop Fitzgerald, right? He's a guy that was developed here. You know, you see Cooley playing pretty well down there for LSU. Is a guy that did a lot of development here. So I think it'll be a little bit of both. I think it has to be, honestly. If you look around at all the best programs in America, they've got both. It's not just, oh, yeah, we're going to go all in on high school and that's it. But it's not just, you know, we'll bring in 70 guys and that'll fix everything. You need both. You need both to make it happen. And again, as long as we've got the current infrastructure that we do in terms of strength and conditioning and all those things, I truly believe that we will continue to develop players at a high level because even in the era of the portal and all that, we're still one of the highest producers of 3-stars into the NFL. So it's about identifying guys, not by stars, but by fit for your system, by their character, by how they want to develop, how likely they are to do the things that it takes to develop, and go from there.
I think your point there on system fit is the most important thing to understand here. And also with Dave Dorn announcing that he will return next season, I think retention is really going to get interesting in about a month's time when the portal does open. Because if NC State can retain most of their offense, that includes the offensive line, because in all reality, you only lose Jalen Grant and Jacarius Peak. So if you can keep the rest, I think you're in pretty good shape there. A couple additions you can rebuild. If you can keep CJ Bailey at quarterback, and I do think that we should, that's obviously going to be the hot button issue there. But if you keep him in place, that kind of keeps hopefully the rest in place in terms of skill. Your wide receiver room, Duke Scott at running back. We assume it will be Duke Scott. Probably add a supplemental piece there as well. If you can keep that in place there, like I said the other day, and turn up the heat a little bit on the defensive side, in addition to some of that player development. My only real thing about the player development aspect now is that because college football is so transactional, it is so year to year, I wouldn't say I'm like worried about the player development piece, but I think it kind of gets lost in translation a little bit because it is a very much 1 year type of deal. So you progress players as long as they stay with you. You look at the guys like Jackson Vick, for example. He's been with us for 3-4 years. Certainly expect him to be a starter next year if he is here. The recruiting class to me, and like I said, you're looking at a 50-ish class ranked in the country. Of course, that will come up once you factor in the transfers here in a couple months. I would think that they will go very heavy portal, especially on that defensive side. So if you're looking into the recruiting rankings right now, as everyone does on National Signing Day, just keep that in mind, that if you're going to harp on the number, keep in mind the number's not done yet. The transfers will fluctuate that as that comes in later on. So I would anticipate the portal class will be pretty heavy. And, I think you should also not let it get lost on you that Cody Hardy was an excellent portal addition for us this year. Sebastian Harsh, an excellent portal addition. Kean Sloan, who I now understand is appealing for additional eligibility. That would be massive if we can get him for another year. He was a rock star for us on the defensive side. So the finds in the portal this last season for NC State were very good. Need to, again, turn up the heat just a little more heading into 2026. Kenton, anything else on National Signing Day?
And I want you to think about this, right? We had some guy by the name of Concepcion here a couple years ago. How many stars did he have coming out of high school?
He was a 3-star.
Teddy Hoffman, outside of his work on special teams, was phenomenal this year, right? We're sitting up here saying, oh, this is a Teddy Hoffman drive. How many stars did he have coming out of high school?
3-star.
Oh, okay. So I'm not really worried about the stars as much.
No.
I'm more so worried about, are we getting guys that fit our program, fit our culture? Are we getting guys that, can get it done? And here's the deal. I am very aware of the fact that when you look at blue chip ratio, that is one of the greatest determining factors to whether or not a team is competing on the college football playoff level. Grayson and I are always realistic about our expectations relative to what we're bringing in. So obviously, if we were sitting here saying, oh, it's national championship or bust, this recruiting class is not good enough. But if we're saying, hey, we want this recruiting class to build upon where we already are, take us to another level, and then in a few years develop into that caliber where we're looking at, hey, we're right there knocking on the door on the precipice of that college football playoff national championship thing, that's a different thing. And again, I'm not going to fault any fans who are like, well, it's year 14. How long is it going to take to get there? I'm not saying that you're wrong. But I'm saying where we are now, this is a good recruiting class. And again, I'm hoping to see some of these guys step up in a major way.
That will do it here. Post game on Wednesday night. This is also our Thursday episode. As always, thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button. Drop your comments in the comment box. Mash that subscribe button if you have not already. We'll catch you right back here on Friday for more. And until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.